All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the hour late start of January Teens Fic Night. But fortunately, we were still able to have our wonderful author, Hayden, aka Black Pixie, with our live Q&A about their story People Watching, which I had the first opportunity to read. Actually, I don't remember if it was a status. Came up in a thread somewhere when I was running around modding, but it was one of those stories that I just actually happened across, which is kind of a rarity these days. But I found it to be great, and hopefully you will as well. Without further ado, I am going to jump into People Watching. See. Any man should have been able to see the moping woman at the leaky cauldron that night, downing every drink she called for. Her bushy hair tamed down that night. Scantily clad, she kept to herself, seemingly asking for attention from her clothes, but her demeanor said otherwise. She was drinking solo, a rare thing these days for any single woman not there with company. But no one was. Those around her were too busy drowning their own sorrows in the never-empty tankard, or attempting to coerce a female into bed with them. But he was no ordinary man. He had suffered more than many knew, and was content to sit and observe his fellow patrons. He sat in the darkened cornered booth, nursing his solo glass of ale for the evening, watching, waiting. His gaze would flicker between her, just about ready to slip off the bar stool she perched precariously on, and two men who watched her too. Polar opposites the men were, one with long blonde hair, skin like a vampire in the lighting of the pub. The other was a stark comparison to his companion, flickers of candlelight from above illuminating his dark skin. It was obvious they had quite an interest in her. Yet to see them partake in alcohol, he knew they were up to something. They sat huddled around their table by the wall, one always with his eyes on her. He was yet to be noticed. But their comings and goings were not for him to mull over, for they were war heroes. Draco Malfoy, Blaise Zabini. Watching Hermione Granger wasn't something he was inclined to do anymore. Her saviors were coming. He'd been away on extended business, and so it was a few months before he could spend another evening at the busy bar. Sitting in the same familiar corner as always, he slipped into his hobby of people watching, pulling out his nearly full notebook, crammed full of his made-up stories of the comings and goings of the strangers around him. He flipped to the next available page and waited. It took time for someone to enter who caught his eye. Or someone's. It was the same pair from his previous time at the pub, the Slytherins. They were accompanied by, or rather they were accompanying, an unusual choice. Hermione Granger. He knew the boys from his own history with Slytherin, the children of Death Eaters like himself. He had grown up with their fathers before Hogwarts led him down a much different path, which he eagerly followed. They were like him in the respect that although they had grown up in the darkest homes known to wizard kind, they had made the conscious choice not to become what their parents had desired for them. Draco and Blaise had turned against all they knew for the hope of the light, and she was of the other wizard race still looked down upon, though the wars were long over. The stigma of being a Muggle-born still remained to that day. In a way, he knew her difficulties too. the time to be dwelling on the choices, bounced between them on a love seat in full view of his booth. If she, her best mates, the British wizarding world knew the tree getting along with her since the war, although they asked to hide the widening gap between them. Although she looked minimally uncomfortable with them, stick around and observe a little longer, watching. Story to become while he had been away. Watching. Twilight morphed into dark. Still he lounged, watching the odd trio. Sip of alcohol. On. He had an inkling at the thought of what the Gryffindor. He knew what sly Slytherins were like, and some more than casual flings had more than drilled it in. But she herself drained only one glass that night for system. The men must have had quite the positive influence on her if she didn't have to rely on staring at the bottom of empty glasses to get through the night. Alcohol, dressed for a well-to-do evening. This version of the woman he had watched grow up, dependent on her books to survive, staring through dim lighting at the library parchments she buried herself under. No more stress-induced hair explosions. Into a fine young woman, to say the least. He was of no direct relation, only from distant family. But he still felt a deep resonation with the girl. By no means someone with similar interests or hobbies. They were completely different people. It brought to them an odd friendship in years past. Long since he had spoken with her, the use of letters and owls abundant. Even longer since they'd stood in the same room and acknowledged the other's existence. It seemed wrong to many if they found out. They knew of the crush he had once harbored on the stared at now. But it had felt real. Only his singular, still living buddy had found out his long-held desires. Inside the head for it. He was disgusted, but eventually saw his point at one time. He knew his desires would never come true. Looking at the woman now half strewn across the blonde's lap, kissing the other passionately. This would be as people watching, he told himself. She deserved her privacy. And if she ever came to him, he would take her seriously and cater to her every whim. For he only wanted her. All right, so that was Black Pics. If you are just joining us, the story has a lot of unique elements to it. It obviously there's advisories that we don't often see used on our archive, but I think that has a lot of depth and gravity that is unexplored in that, which is, of course, the stalking advisory, which you can certainly hear in the story. And it also explores polyamory with Blaise, Draco, and Hermione Granger. And there are a few authors who've been shedding some more light that aspect of our inclusivity tags and what polyamory really means, as opposed to kind of some of the caricatures that society tries to put out about it. But I want to start with this story, is kind of where I usually start, the seemingly obvious question. What made you want to write this story?
To be honest, I don't really know. It kind of just came to me, and I was like, what about this guy who watches this woman that that he really likes, but she's with two other people that he would never imagine her with. And yeah, kind of just came.
Fair enough. We've all been there. Goodness knows. Often, I think there is an instinct, maybe more so than other folks, to be people watchers of sorts. Not this sort exactly. But do you ever find you're in a crowd observing things that maybe go unnoticed, but we see from Sirius in the story?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'll sit at the library and I'll watch people and I'll think, oh, what are you doing? Or what books they're borrowing. When I do go out, I'll, look at people's clothes and think, oh, maybe they've had a bad day. And, it's kind of like, it's interesting to make up stories for people that you'll never know and just imagine.
Those are sometimes stories, right? you get to think up what's going on. Anything I enjoyed about the story was the way that the story shell, but the way that in the actual writing of the story, you don't necessarily clearly commit to the perspective. Then, what made you choose to write the story kind of in that fashion?
Oh, in the not like narrator version, like from a character's perspective, from Sirius's perspective.
Yes.
I honestly hate writing narrator. I love looking at a person and actually feeling their emotions from their perspective and telling it how it is from a person, as if you've just stepped into someone else's shoes and you're experiencing them for a bit.
About the story, because from that, if we actually do kind of get more of a sense of what experience is fundamental to the titular people watching experience. So,
yes.
I about like I was saying at the top, you also explore from Sirius's perspective in this particular piece, explore relationship between Draco, Blaze, and Hermione, and through her progression, obviously show that in a very maybe understand polyamorous relationships from some of the caricatures there.
I'm honest. I would say that I can't speak for relationships, but I do. It's from what I've read and the research I've done. It's about sharing, and it's about being there for everyone in that relationship. So I don't know.
Is there a story can you explore that relationship that you set up in the story?
Yes, I think I am planning on doing another piece on this, maybe for Camp Nano or Jorno, I don't know, but definitely I'm going to explore the relationships in Sirius a bit more if I can.
So you've brought up Camp Nano, which is, it feels like it was just the new year, but it's almost February, so yes. It's planning time, right? What do you have planned? Got one possible thing, but do you have anything else that you can kind of tease anybody watching with for?
For this piece,
Just generally, this shooting off of this piece or otherwise.
well, I think as some people know, I was working on a bit of a novel for Nano last year. It's about Molly Weasley II, so I'm going to be working on that for Feb No, as a bunch of us are doing Feb No. So stay tuned, basically.
All right. Yeah, one of the kind of the story that we read is obviously the stalking type behavior that he is engaging in, as far as, you know, what he's watching. What made you want to put that tinge on his perspective?
I don't know. I think it's sort of the people watching aspect that writers are known to do, and it's the fact that he has had a previous sort of relationship with Hermione, and this is his way of following up on her and making sure she's okay, while still not getting back involved with her because of something that's happened in the past, which will be hinted on and talked about in the next piece.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. There's a lot of allusion, particularly at the end, to things that have gone on before, which certainly could come across as maybe their allusions to so-called missing scenes. But it sounds like there's more there.
Yeah.
What made you want Sirius to survive? Into the HPFT, the rebuilding era that some people call post Hogwarts. Is it just your feeling toward him as a character, or wanting to make this piece work, or what's the feeling behind that?
I think I always liked Sirius. He always was a big fan of mine, and I just wanted to explore what would happen if he had survived and how that would have changed Hermione, the trio, and the rest of the family and the people that knew and loved him, like the Order.
And you mentioned the trio there. Could we expect in a possible offshoot story some background on what has caused some of the apparent fracturing there? Maybe. All right. Fair enough. Playing it close to the vest. Well, it does not look like we've had any chat questions, or I will double check Twitter to make sure that I have not missed any Twitter questions. But it does not look like it. So what I want to do is close by thanking you, Hayden, for being with us. I don't know what hour it is, but Hayden has taken time to be with us. Some time away from family on their Australia Day, I believe. Correct?
That was yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah. It's
normal day.
1:30 here.
But with us, Hayden, thank you for submitting this great story, both to the archive and to Fic Night, and anybody who watches the video. This is posted on our archive at archive.hpfanfictalk.com. You can find all Hayden's stories. There are 33 at this point, which is one of our higher numbers from one author on the website at Black Pixie, her pen name, and you can find this story there right now, right at the top, called People Watching. And thank you all for joining us, and have a happy 2018.